So this is how it ends. Not with cannon fire. Not with the cries of the guard at Austerlitz. But with silence. Salt air. And the slow, steady erosion of memory. St. Helena, the rock where even ambition dies. They watch me, they all watch. But no one remembers. My name once shook thrones. Now it clings to dust. There was a time I believed I could mold history like clay. That the will of one man, if firm enough, could reorder the stars. Russia. Yes. Let us speak of Russia. I crossed the Niemen with an army like no other. Over 500,000 men, a continent's breath turned into steel and smoke. Flags like rivers of fire. Drums beating the pulse of empire. I believed myself invincible. No. I believed I was inevitable. Was I a god? Or merely a man drunk on the incense of his own myth? They told me not to go. Even the air seemed to whisper caution. But I saw a crown in the snows of Moscow. And thought it mine to take. They forget. I did not chase war for the sake of it. War was the only language they answered. Austria. Prussia. England. And Russia, the eternal sphinx, unmoved by logic, unmoved by time. But I misread the riddle. We marched east. Cities bowed. Kings trembled. And yet, the further we moved, the more it felt like marching into a painting. A vast, white stillness. Villages burned themselves before we arrived. Wells poisoned. Roads vanished. And still I pressed on. Because turning back meant doubt. And doubt was a crack in the marble. Smolensk. Borodino. Blood frozen on the ground before it could sink in. But we reached Moscow. We reached it. And found only ghosts. No czar. No delegation. No surrender. Only fire. 3 nights, the city burned. Not from cannon. But from defiance. The sky turned black with smoke. And red beneath it. A funeral pyre for an empire I had yet to lose. But it was there. In the empty palaces, the charred streets. The silence. That I first heard it. The sound of something breaking. Not bone. Not stone. Something inside me. We had one. But it tasted of ash. And then came the retreat. The winter. They say we were not prepared. How can one prepare for a season that bites the soul? Men froze where they stood. Arms outstretched as if reaching for home. Horses collapsed, their eyes still open. As if in protest. Cannons abandoned in the snow. Like toys of dead giants. And I led them back through hell. Or perhaps I followed. I, who remembered every uniform, every regiment, could no longer remember the names of the dead. There were too many. Too many to mourn. Too many to justify. And what is the measure of a man who leads 500,000 into the abyss and returns with a shadow? They say Russia defeated me. But it was not her armies. It was time. It was space. It was the lie I told myself. That fate favored the bold. That the stars marched with me. They did not. They watched. And when I stumbled, they turned away. So this is what remains. A damp wind, the sound of the sea gnawing at the rock, and silence. No drum roll. No trumpet. Just silence. My hands tremble now. Not from fear, but from time, that last enemy I could not outmarch. Once, they held the fate of empires. Now, they struggle with a pen. And yet, they remember. They remember the fire. Do you know what it is to be a god among men? To speak, and the world bends? I knew. I lived that dream. And now I sit here, exiled, forgotten by those who once chanted my name like a hymn. But I am not here to beg for memory. I am here to confess. Not to priests. Not to kings. To history. Russia. It began with ambition. No, more than that. Destiny. I believed it was written. Europe bent at the knee. I had remade it with fire and vision. One crown. One code. One will. And Russia. Russia was the last horizon. They said it was too vast. Too cold. I said, so is glory. When I crossed the Niemen, I did not march, I entered. With the Grande Army at my back, a tide of steel and silk, drums and eagles. 500,000 souls, the finest I had forged. We moved like thunder. Every village we passed whispered my name in awe or fear. The Tsar would come to me, I was certain. How could he not? I was the storm. But Moscow did not fall like Vienna. And time did not kneel. Moscow burned. The city glowed on the horizon like a wound, flames licking the heavens, houses collapsing in silence. Not by our hand, but theirs. They would rather destroy their home than let it fall to me. And I stood there, victorious, yet hollow. The silence in that city, it screamed. No people. No cheers. No surrender. Moscow was empty, like my victories. I realized that too late. Then came the cold. Not sudden, not merciful. Like a creeping death, slow and deliberate. The snow began to fall, first gently, as if mocking us. Then it buried us. I watched proud men claw at the ice for food, for warmth, for home. Fingers black with frost. Eyes that no longer saw France, only white endlessness. Cavalry reduced to walking ghosts. The drum beats slowed, then stopped. We had conquered everything, but not the winter. We won every battle, and still, we lost the war. They did not die in battle. They died in silence. Not under the thunder of cannons, not with sabers drawn. But in snowdrifts, nameless, forgotten, their final breath devoured by wind. 1,000,000 souls, reduced to brittle shadows in white. I saw them. One by one they sank into the frost like coins dropped into water, swallowed and gone. And I, who had commanded kings to kneel, could not command the cold to stop. Was that my punishment? Or simply nature's indifference? Russia did not defeat me in battle. She outweighed me. She stretched her silence across the steppe like an eternal gravecloth. Each mile, a judgment. Each flake of snow, a whisper. You do not belong here. Moscow was empty. Not conquered, not gifted, abandoned. It mocked me with its silence more than 1,000 armies ever could. I walked her streets, waiting for surrender. But only ash answered me. Fires in the dark. The kind you cannot warm your hands on. We fled with ghosts at our backs. No songs. No banners. Just the crunch of frost under boots and the cough of men who had forgotten how to hope. I remember their eyes. Hollow. Not angry. Not afraid. Just hollow. I, who had promised them glory, delivered only a white graveyard. They followed me, not out of fear, but out of faith. And I led them into a silence so vast. Even God refused to speak. Was it hubris? Yes. But it was more than that. It was belief. Belief that I was not merely a man, but a force. A will made flesh. A myth walking. But myths do not bleed. And I did. Not from wounds of war, but from the slow death of certainty. I began that march a Caesar. I returned a shadow. I cannot recall all their names. There were too many. But their eyes remain. Frozen in time. Frozen in judgment. I brought death to more than I can count. And yet the world still weighs my victories like coins on a scale. But tell me, what is a victory? If it ends with silence? I lost more than a throne in that snow. I lost myself. What remains of an empire when the banners fall silent? What remains of a man, when even his shadow no longer follows? I once believed the world could be bent by will. That history was mine to carve, like marble beneath a sculptor's chisel. And for a time, it was. Europe danced to my rhythm. Kings trembled. Nations shifted like pieces on my board. But the board cracked. Not from battle. From within. Pride. It whispers like a friend, then laughs like an enemy. It was not the Russian frost that ruined me. It was the fire I fed too long in my own chest. I mistook silence for surrender. I mistook emptiness for conquest. I mistook myself for something more than a man. Was I a god? Or merely a man who dared believe he was more? Even now, I do not know. Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. They say history remembers victors. But it remembers better those who fall. I wonder how I will be remembered. As tyrant? As genius? As monster? As savior? Let them decide. Let the centuries argue. Let the books write and rewrite. Let the painters choose the angle of my jaw. I am done shaping the world. Now, the world shapes me. With distance. With judgment. With myth. To my son, if ever these words reach you, know this. Glory is a flame that devours the hand that holds it too tightly. Power is a mask that blinds the one who wears it too long. But love remains. And regret. And the bitter sweetness of memory. Moscow was empty. And so, in the end, was I. But for a moment, just one brief moment, the world bowed. And now, I bow in turn. To silence. To time. To the truth that no man, however great, escapes the cold. History will march on. Let it. I have marched enough. Let it write. I have spoken enough. Let it judge. I have fallen enough. And in this final whisper, perhaps I find peace.